young.
Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't have all gray hair.
She's young in the hair.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Uh, And that concludes our service for this morning. Well, that'll wake you up in the morning. A happy hello to everybody and welcome to another wonderful Sunday here at First Unitarian Society, where independent thinkers gather in a safe, nurturing, musical environment to explore issues of social, spiritual, and ethical significance as we try to make a difference in this world. I'm Steve Goldberg, a proud member of this congregation, recently diagnosed as a very stable genius. And I wanted to share that with you. But I also want to share with you a special welcome to any guests, visitors, and newcomers. If this is your first time at First Unitarian Society, I know you'll find that this is a special place. And we invite you to join us at our fellowship hour immediately following the service. And speaking of the service, this would be a perfect time to silence those pesky electronic devices that you just will not need for the next hour because you'll be sitting back or leaning forward to enjoy today's service. And I know that today's service will touch your heart, stir your spirit, and trigger one or two new thoughts. We're really glad that you're here. And right now, we invite you to join in a moment of centering silence so we can be fully present with each other this morning.
As we move to the end of our time of quiet, I invite you to take one intentional and deep breath to bring this time to a close. As we move into our time of worship, we seek to hold this space for many important things. And so many of the things that matter deeply start from a certain kind of core place, a place that connects us again and again with the spirit of life, that returns us to our better selves and brings us into a place of love. This is the heart of all things. This is the breath that animates the world. This is the flow and the thread that weaves us all into the interdependent web. May such a presence, a place, a calling, a thread of purposefulness invite us into this time and place of powerful belonging. I invite us to rise in all the ways that we do as we join our voices together in our chalice lighting and spark the flame. That is printed in your order of service as together we say, with humility and courage born of our history, we are called as Unitarian Universalists to build the beloved community where all souls are welcome as blessings and the human family lives whole and reconciled. With this vision in our hearts and minds, we light our chalice. I invite you to turn towards each other and offer a friendly greeting. Good morning. Glad that you're here. Good morning again. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Glad that you're here. Ta-da! Good morning. Oh no, oops. I'll grab that.
I invite you to join us in our hymn number 1018 in the teal hymnal. Come and go with me.
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound.
There'll be freedom.
There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound.
There'll be justice.
There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound.
There'll be singing.
There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing
Come on forward.
Come on, come on.
Join us. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Pull up a chair.
Pull up the rug.
Yeah.
Hello. Good morning. Glad you're here. Hello.
Hi.
Well, Leslie, it has been months since we've done this, so I'm really excited to be sharing the story time with you, and especially in this time. It's been an exciting time in the congregation.
I'm excited to be here. And as some of you may know, Doug has been having a lot of conversations with people in the congregation. Many of you have been having these conversations about what is at the heart of First Unitarian Society here at church. And I like to think of that as like, what are our favorite things about First Unitarian Society? What are the things that make us excited to come here and happy once we get here? And so we're going to share a story with you about favorites, and then we'll talk a little more about First Unitarian. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Our story is called Guess Who My Favorite Person Is by Bird Baylor. I happened to be in an alfalfa field, barefoot, sort of lying down, watching ladybugs climb yellow flowers, when I saw this little farm kid who was also barefoot, sort of lying down, watching ladybugs climb yellow flowers, helping them up again when they fell off.
Hey, do you want to see my favorite one?
So I went over to where he was. He pointed to a bug. To tell you the truth, I couldn't see much difference between that one and about a million others. I was going back to my own part of the field when...
Okay, now you choose your favorite one.
And that wasn't easy, because I had never practiced choosing ladybugs before, but finally I did. He looked surprised.
Okay, you like that one. Wow, I passed over that one 2 days ago, but it's your business.
For a while, we didn't talk at all. I stretched out and closed my eyes and just let the alfalfa be taller than I was.
What is your favorite thing, being asleep or being awake?
Being awake.
Okay, well then wake up and play the What is Your Favorite Thing game.
I think we're already playing it.
We are, actually, and it's my turn. My favorite turn is first.
Well, by all means, go ahead then.
Okay, let's see. Tell me your favorite color.
Blue.
See, you've already done it wrong. You can't just say a color like blue, but what kind of blue?
All right, well, you know the blue on a lizard's belly? That sudden kind of blue that you see just for a second? A blue that afterwards you think, did I make that up?
You know, sure, I think I know that kind of blue.
And then he told me his favorite color, which was brown.
Yeah, see, the thing is, not many people appreciate brown, but I don't care. I do. And I like the kind of brown best that is sort of a dark reddish brown that is good for mountains and for rocks. And you can see it a lot like in exposed steep cliffs. I think that's beautiful. Brown is nice. See? We're winning. Brown is winning.
I know that kind of brown. What's your favorite thing to touch?
Okay, well, my feet like to touch mud, but my face likes, like the wind. When I've been running up a hill, for instance, or I just am really having fun. So I would have to choose both things.
Wait, that's not fair to choose two favorite things.
Well, if they really are your favorite things, it would be silly not to play that way.
I could see that he kind of was right about that. We must have named 100 favorite things that afternoon. I remember that his favorite dream is flying.
Yeah, do you ever fly in your dreams?
Oh, I do.
Perfect, exactly. So it feels so good, like when you're soaring up.
I jumped on a Pokemon and I blasted out of my house.
Well, and it's so cool when you're flying over the countryside and other things and you're able to see the land. I mean, I think that's really powerful when you can do that. And I've had that dream at least 7 times.
Wow.
I've dreamed more than 7.
Well, you win.
My favorite dream is finding turquoise beads when I'm walking along, not really trying to find them. I dreamed it once about a year ago.
Nah, that's nice.
What's your favorite time of day?
You know, my favorite time is now. Right now, especially if I've been running around everywhere and I'm all out of breath and I fall down and I watch, well, ladybugs like I've been doing. And I find someone to play, what is your favorite thing, which we have been doing. And then maybe we can walk back to the road together.
I was going to say that sunset was my favorite time of day, when all the pinks and the golds of the desert paint the sky. But when I thought about it, I wanted to choose now too. I wasn't sure that he'd let us both choose the same thing. He's kind of picky that way, but he was nice about it.
Well, of course we can. Actually, that is my favorite way to end the game.
So by then it was getting late, so we walked back as far as the road together.
I like that story.
The end.
And it reminds me of thinking about our favorites in so many different things. Like Leslie and I thought a little bit in getting ready for today about what our favorite thing is at First Unitarian Society. And as a matter of fact, we each did a drawing of our favorite things. So even though it was my favorite thing to go first, do you want to go first this time, or do you want me to? Okay, I'll go first. So, this is my amazing art. As you can tell, I was not an art major in school. But it's it is not amazing, but it's colorful. So that's the important thing. And so because I move so often to different churches, then I tried, well, thank you, I think so too. It's the best I could do. But because I move so often, I try to think about what it is that I really liked about going to church the very first time, and I look and see if there are things like that everywhere I go, and there are. And so here in the center, I have some what we sometimes call symbols, things like that symbolize like Christianity or Judaism or Taoism or Buddhism. And so I like the stories and the questions that we explore when we think about religion. And believe it or not, it's kind of hard to tell because these are like symbolic people. A lot of these circles of different colors represent all kinds of people all over the world. There are a lot of them. And so as important as the stories are, having a lot of people to share the stories with and to talk about them is just as much a part of the favorite of every congregation I've served. So that's why I put them on my drawing.
Great. I love your drawing.
Thank you. It's vibrant. Yes. Okay. So, what about you, Leslie?
All right. I feel like I'm doing show and tell. So this is my drawing here, and you may notice that there are several people in my heart of FUS, and that's because I feel like it's the people who really make this place such a wonderful place to be. But this is a picture of someone offering an ice cream cone, and not because we offer ice cream cones here, because unfortunately we hardly ever do. But the ice cream cone shows, for me, it's symbolizing support, you know, because the cone is supporting the ice cream, and the cone is good by itself, and the ice cream is good by itself, but together it's just that much more wonderful. And this is such a supportive community. People really encourage each other and have each other's backs during rough times, so I have that. And then this is a picture of three heads kind of leaning toward each other, which for me symbolizes the sharing of ideas here and the sharing of things that touch our heart and touch our minds and touch our spirits. And there's different symbols there that kind of represent what we share ideas about. And then this is two people touching hands, and that symbolizes for me maybe the most important thing here, which is the connections that people make together, like the friendships that you kids make with each other, and that your teachers make with you, and that our adults make with each other. The connections are super important. And then around all that is a vine that symbolizes how we all grow together by being in community together here. So that's what I love about it.
That's great.
Do you seriously have ice cream here?
I seriously don't have ice cream here.
We have, though. It's just not often enough. So, well, that's great. And so I bet that there's a way for you all to participate too. And that is that I know that Leslie has asked if there's time today that if there is time in your class, you can make a drawing and share it with us. But even if there's not, if you do a drawing this week and bring it back with you this week and share it with us next weekend, we will display it so that people can see what your favorite things look like. So either today or this week, you have a chance to share some of your thoughts about what your favorite things are here at First Unitarian Society.
Yep. We would love to see what you come up with and what speaks to your hearts about being here. And if you want to do that as a family, that could be a really fun thing to do as a family. So hopefully today after class we'll have a picture from you, or maybe next week when you come back.
Sounds good. Why don't we all rise in the ways that we do, and we'll do the songs When the Spirit Says Do. You actually don't even need your book. We sing it's a very easy to learn one. Do, exactly. So stand and we'll go through When the Spirit Says Do.
Have fun at class.
You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do. Oh Lord, you gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 Spirit says do.
You gotta sing.
You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing. Oh Lord, you gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. 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 Spirit says sing.
You gotta dance.
You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you gotta dance. Oh Lord, you gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. 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 Spirit says dance.
Back to do.
You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do. Oh Lord, you gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 Spirit says do.
Nicely done.
You get to sit when the Spirit says sit. This morning's reading comes from Barbara Peskin in This Familiar Place. And she writes, "In this familiar place, listen to the sounds of breathing, the creaking chairs, the shuffling feet, clearing throats, and sighing all around. Know that each breath, movement, the glance meant for you or intercepted, holds a life within it.
These are signs that we choose to be in this company, have things to say to each other, things not yet said, but in each other's presence still trembling behind heart's doors. These doors closed but unlocked, each silent thing waiting on the threshold between unknowing and knowing, between being hidden and being known.
Listen, rejoice,
and say Amen." Often before we make a major decision in our lives, have a major change, especially when we have a choice in that change, there are really things that prepare us for that moment of transformation long before we get to that place in our lives, that place of deep change. And that was certainly the case for me in one of the more significant changes that I've made in my life. Many years ago, after 13 years in a single congregation, I decided to resign, that it was time for me to move on. And little did I know that that preparation began when I gathered for the first ever Institute of Ministerial Excellence in Asilomar, California, which gathered Unitarian Universalist ministers truly from all over the world for a week to study, learn, and grow together. And in that very first worship service, we had an opening preacher who wasn't even a Unitarian Universalist, the Reverend Dr. Kay Northcutt, who came to us that week so that she could do a session on homiletics, on preaching itself. And so she kicked off the service, and she had an amazing and dynamic worship style and preaching voice that was incredible. But what I didn't know at the time was that she also, in that time, was incredibly ill, and that it had taken an entire team of doctors in the week before she came to Asilomar to get her healthy enough to be able to be at that gathering that week. And so she really wanted to be there. And apparently there was something powerful within her that needed to be said, and we benefited from it. She began the sermon by telling a story of when she was growing up. She and her sister every morning would have the same experience that her mother sort of used as a ritual for them to get them ready to go off to school. And they very soon learned that it would happen every morning. So they did whatever they could to try and sneak out before their mom realized they were going off to school. But somehow, as mothers do with their psychic powers, she would always figure out that they were leaving, and as they were making their way stealthily across the lawn, they could hear her trotting across the wood floor of the house to the front door, and she would fling the door open and step out and say, "Girls! Girls!" And every morning they would stop and they would turn around and look at her, and she would say, "Girls, find your greatness." Well, she went on to talk to us about who we are as Unitarian Universalists. And she said this to us: "You are lifesavers. You are mosaic makers, called to put together broken bit by bit in creating patterns of beauty and meaning out of pain and loss. You are bone carriers, like the Israelites who lifted the bones of their ancestors and took them out across the boundaries into the desert. And bones are heavy things, but what you inherit from those who come before you is rich. And so you must be sure to carry them with you." And in her words, I began to hear a new understanding of what I was called to do in my life. And so in a few months, what called me to resign from being the minister was not a sense of bitterness or being burnt out or tired, but out of a deep sense of having fallen in love with the congregation again, and knowing that something was calling me on to a new place in my life, but just as importantly, for the congregation to really step authentically into their next chapter they were called to. They needed someone else as their leader. And so from that place of love and calling, I was able to do the right thing for the right reason. And I found myself thinking of Northcutt's words to us at the end of her sermon: Unitarian Universalists, lifesavers, mosaic makers, bone carriers, find your greatness. And so as we bridge the time this month of exploring belonging and move into the time of exploring next month vision and mission, we are invited to think about the components that invite us to that greatness. And so this month, when we ask you to think about what was at the heart of FUS, so many of you shared what it was that you thought was essential, at the core, at the heart of things here. And yes, there was a lot of distinctive and individual answers, but certain answers came forward time and time again. You told us that community is at the heart of First Unitarian Society, which you have told me from the very beginning. But you were clear that there were some components of that community that were especially essential and at the core and heart of things. You felt that the fact that this is a community of all ages was essential, and that you gather as all ages, week after week, month into year, and that you come together with different viewpoints on the world and very different personalities, and yet you work to be part of a united community, a community that calls each of you to be authentic in who you are, and ultimately, as a community united, to be authentic as well. You told me that music is at the heart of FUS, and in particular, how it calls you to embody mind, spirit, and body totally in how you are present here. You said over and over again that being with like-minded people was at the core of FUS for you. And we will explore in the coming weeks how that is both a great gift, but also a challenge for what it means to move into the future. And most of all, you said that the ways that you live out your values in the rest of your life, as well as here, how you make social justice and compassion and a deeper sense of acceptance part of who you are on a daily basis, that is at the heart of FUS too. And I like to think of all of those things as a sort of thread, a thread that weaves itself through the fabric of this place and through your connection with it. And as a matter of fact, William Stafford wrote a poem that describes that imagery beautifully. He wrote, "There is a thread that you follow. It goes among the things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you are pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it is hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen, people get hurt, people die, but nothing you do can stop time's unfolding, and you don't ever let go of the thread." Parker Palmer reflected on Stafford's words in this way: "Holding on to that thread doesn't make life any easier, but it can keep you from getting lost in the dark woods that swallow us up every now and then. Knowing that we can find our way home with that thread in hand, we are more likely to explore the mystery and learn what it has to teach us. And so, as we move into vision and mission, we carry with us those essential things to help us navigate the complicated questions of what it means to realize what we are called to do now and in the coming years. Frederick Buechner talks about that sense of calling in this way. He says that we most meaningfully realize our calling when it is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. So when you find that powerful place, that place where your sense of being fulfilled and glad and deeply at home within the heart of who you are intersects with what the world is calling out so desperately to have done now, when that intersection happens, something incredible and life-changing happens as well. And so, we are called during this time to think about who we are, what it is that we want to do, who we are called to serve, and let that guide us into the days that come. And this is important work. It will call us to do some difficult things together. Rashida Graham Washington works in Chicago with communities that are often in the midst of great turmoil. And she has helped them learn to turn towards each other and work together to pull themselves into a place of greater life and stability. And what she noticed is that over and over again in that process of moving into that life itself, there was a shift that happened that she described in this way in all of the communities. She said that they moved from smart individualism to collective intelligence. And when they did that, there were certain qualities that always came to the fore. She said those kind of communities are committed to authentic lifelong learning. They realize that the process of gaining wisdom and truth never stops. And often when we just think we have gone far enough, that is just an invitation to the next step of growth and learning. She said that these communities are willing to name again and again when they have been wrong. And even more importantly, they actually assume that if they are bold enough to risk important things, that they will fail. And that failure is nothing to be ashamed of, because that is the place where some of the greatest wisdom and benefit may come our way. To be able to acknowledge where we've made a mistake and let it be our teacher can save our lives and our communities again and again. But most of all, she said that what this process of collective intelligence teaches a community is how to stay at the table in difficult conversations. To assume that the difficulty itself is telling them that this is a conversation worth having and having again and again. And rather than rushing to some sort of superficial answer, it is asking us to take the time to really figure it out. That place of dynamic tension is a place of life itself and gives our community the vital life that it needs. So in this time, in these months, as we begin to think more concretely about what is happening next, I invite you into that space to learn together, to talk together, to stay at the table together. Next weekend, after the second service, I'll invite you to the first of the conversations that will ask you to think about who you are. But these conversations will continue over time because we're not trying to superficially change things, but really move deeply into a life-changing set of conversations. And so, in this time, First Unitarian Society, you are mosaic makers. You are shaping beauty out of this difficult time. You are bone carriers because you maintain a thoughtful, compassionate, and passionate faith that is connected to the past but isn't mired there. And you are already resourceful and generous and abundant enough to do what you need to do. As we move into this time, First Unitarian Society of Madison, find your greatness. May that be our work in the coming months. May it lead us to a place of life and home. Amen, and blessed be.
One way we find our greatness is to be in touch with the abundance in our lives and to share that, not just within these walls, but beyond our walls. This week's outreach offering will go to the Wisconsin Network for Peace, Justice, and Sustainability. We will now take up a collection with great joy and gratitude.
So one of the themes today has been the heart of FUS, and we've just engaged in one example of our collective heart, and that's the outreach offering. Another part of our heart of FUS is volunteering. And now you get to hear the names of the people, these all-stars who are wonderful volunteers and help the services run smoothly. So give them a hug during the fellowship hour and put them in your will. Operating the sound system, thank you to Mark Schultz. Our lay minister, thank you to Judy Troya. We thank Penny Morey, whose smiling face greeted us this morning as we arrived. And we thank Marcia Bradley and Tom Delmage, who served as ushers for this unruly crowd. We also thank Mary Lee Nelson and Bis Nitschke, who are handling the coffee and hospitality during the fellowship hour, and John McGevna for staffing the welcome table. Just two announcements for you today. One is that our annual art fair, known as Art in the Right Place, will take place November 23 and 24, so the weekend before Thanksgiving week. And we need volunteers to make this art fair successful. In fact, we have 70 openings. That's 70 openings. And the volunteer opportunities range from 30 minutes to 3 hours, depending on your schedule and what works for you. If you're interested, see Lorna Aronson in the Commons at the information table during the fellowship hour. And the next announcement is an important housekeeping announcement. Please return your hymnals to the carts right outside the doorway. So endeth the announcements.
Also at the heart of FUS is the opportunity to share our joys and sorrows. Once a month, we take time to light candles and to bear witness to each other's life experiences. So if you came with a joy or a sorrow in your heart, or you know of loved ones who need our good thoughts and prayers, we invite you to come forward to light a candle, to share briefly from the microphone that Judy will offer you. And if you cannot come forward to light a candle, you can raise your hand and we can light a candle on your behalf. I now open the floor for joys and sorrows.
I'm Nancy Vetterschultz, and I have a great joy. 2 weekends ago, I was able to spend the whole weekend alone with my daughter, Linnea, on a retreat at Kripalu Yoga Center. She usually comes with a 2-year-old stuck to her hip, and he was with his dad for the whole weekend, so we were able to really re-deepen our relationship. It was just lovely. And it was in the Berkshires, and it was peak color. Oh, and it was sunny, so it was wonderful.
Hi, I'm Kathy Block-Brown, and I bring a concern. It isn't a sorrow yet, but I'd like us all to hold those folks that are in California that are experiencing the fires. We have family and friends. We used to live there. We have children there and grandchildren there, both in Northern and Southern California. And right now, no one is in immediate danger, but it's close. It's really close. And they all just need our love.
Hi, my name is Shauna. I just wanted to light a candle today for my really dear friend Brandon, who's going through a really, really tough time, just in every way you can imagine, and I'm just hoping and praying for him to get back on. So just wanted to do this for him.
Judy, could you light a candle for those folks who are traveling right now? Reverend Kelly is in Fond du Lac today, and Reverend Doug had to leave to go catch a flight to Rhode Island for a week of collegial meetings with his colleagues. And we'll also light one final candle for all those joys and sorrows that remain in the tenderness of our hearts. And together we join our voices in song for one final hymn, number 157. We will be singing it through twice. I invite you to rise in body and or spirit.
Step by step, the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones can form an arch, singly none, singly none. And by union, what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none. Step by step, the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones can form an arch, singly none, singly none. And by union, what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none.
As we prepare to go out into the rest of our lives, I bring you these words from Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. We extinguish our chalice, but not the love of this community, the heart of our faith. Those remain with us until we gather again. I invite you now to be seated for one last gift of music.